What's going on, guys? This is Parker with Backyard Barn Finds, and the other day I was invited out to this truck event here at the York State Fairground. Now, I don't know a whole lot about these classic trucks, but my buddy Marty does, and what we got to do is go find him so that we all can learn together. Hey Marty, what's going on?
Man?
There's Teddy.
This
is Teddy.
This is Teddy. He's a friend of mine.
Nice to meet you, Teddy.
How do you like the show so far?
Man, I'll be honest with you, it's really cool. They got a bunch of old trucks here, stuff that I've really never ever seen before, Marty.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff here that you won't see anywhere else. So this is the Antique Truck Historical Society.
Okay.
This is their national meet. Every year they do it somewhere different. This year it happens to be in York, Pennsylvania. They usually try to move it from somewhere on the West Coast to somewhere on the East Coast to somewhere in the middle. That way you get a different dispersion every year of trucks. This year it's in York, Pennsylvania, which is great for us because it's only, what, about a 3-hour ride, Teddy?
3 hours.
Yeah, so makes life much easier to get to, because last year it was in Reno, Nevada.
Oh,
Wow. That would have been a haul.
Well,
But,
Teddy, this truck behind us is your dad's truck, is this right?
Yep.
And what can you guys tell us about it? And we'll start at the front.
This here is a 1973 GMC 9500.
Okay.
GMC built tractors that you could buy through your normal GM truck dealer back in the day. This truck is considered a high or a tall hood model. It's also a long hood version. They made a short hood and a long hood. This is a long hood, tall 9500. This was basically the biggest GMC truck that they would make. It's a 8V71 Detroit diesel in it, which, for those that don't know, is a 8-cylinder in a V series, and each cylinder is 71 cubic inches. This truck drives great. It's really neat.
Can we open it up?
Absolutely.
And what is the purpose of these trucks here? Is it like are they awarded? Is it just kind of to show off?
They do awards, but for most of it, it's just the joy of showing off old trucks. I mean, you're going to see some incredible stuff here that you won't see anywhere else in the country.
Just walking over here, I've seen stuff I've never seen before.
Yeah. There were so many options and so many different ways to order a truck back in the day that it was entirely possible to have two trucks that were never built the same. Teddy's father, John, he brought this. He brought a couple other trucks. He's got this Peterbilt here, which is also very cool because it's a 3408 Cat, which is a big Caterpillar V8. My dad drove it and I rode with him passenger all the way out here. We brought two of the other trucks with us. Then there's that blue truck right there, which has a Cummins KT engine in it, which is 1,150 cubic inches. One of the biggest diesel engines ever put in a truck. This truck has two twin turbos on it, as you can see.
Oh my goodness. So what does something like this horsepower-wise push out?
The KTTA 600, that was mainly these trucks were put in dozers and excavators, so this is not a stock engine that they would have put in this truck. Stock from the factory made 700 horsepower.
This one is kind of extended in the back, is that right?
So it's a 300-inch wheelbase truck, which is mostly for a look, but a lot of guys used to like the longer wheelbase because it made the ride a little better, distributed the weight a little more. So
you can also see inside it's got two transmissions. It's a 5-speed and a 4-speed transmission. So it's funny, this truck is actually, Macks and Kenworths and Peterbilts do their transmissions differently. In a Mack, the auxiliary trans is close to you.
Auxiliary is towards you, and they did that mainly because they thought if those trucks were made more inner-city driving, should be shifting the auxiliary more. With this truck, the auxiliary is away from you, so the main box, it's a 5-speed main and a 4-speed auxiliary.
Thank you, Teddy.
And this one, I can't help but behind us here.
Yeah.
This thing is a beast.
So this is out of the Mahan collection, the same collection that bought the Mack M100 and is doing the restoration on it now. This is as it says on the sign, the world's biggest chain drive Mack.
This truck was kind of like a barn find at one time. Was that
true? It was a field quarry find, right, Teddy?
Yeah. So in 1991, there was word of someone in Canada that they had this truck up in some logging fields up there in Canada, and they actually had to bring a helicopter up there to try to find it. And in late 1991, they got it out, and they brought it back and restored it in about, I think it took a year or two to restore the entire, and it was a huge project, and they've had it ever since.
They have to drip oil on the chain.
Oh, that is rather interesting. Can you explain that to us here?
So you would fill the chain oil, obviously like it says daily, and then as you were driving, you had a spigot to adjust, and it would keep lubrication on the chain while you were driving. Obviously it built up a lot of dust, and it needed oil to help save the chain.
I mean, you can see the trucks
Oh, there's.
Oh, they just go for days.
There'll end up being 1,000 trucks here at least.
1,000?
You'll end up with 1,000 antique trucks here.
Oh my goodness.
We wanted to stop and look at these Macks that were restored by Dan Thomas here.
Okay.
These are some beautiful restorations. There's I think he brought, what, 6 or 8 trucks, Teddy?
6 trucks this year, yeah.
And every one of them is a beautiful truck. So we were just walking around admiring. So this is an 88 RW Mack.
I was going to say, for someone like me that has absolutely no idea, this is an RW 713, and what exactly is that, Marty?
So our model is the cab style, the cab designation.
Okay.
And it's a 700, meaning it's a long hood. This truck here has a E9 Mack. It's a 500 horsepower V8 Mack.
Okay.
And this is a beautiful truck here. This guy does phenomenal restoration work. Because then behind you is another Mack he did, a Superliner with a big Cummins in it. That, again, flawless, just beautiful restoration work.
And you were telling me something that you prefer the Superliners or something.
Yeah,
is that right?
Superliners are one of my favorite trucks. So there's actually 2 different styles of Superliner.
Okay.
There's Superliner 1 and Superliner 2. Superliner 1, like this, has round headlights, whereas the Superliner 2s, they switched them in the mid-'80s and they're a square headlight. Personally, I like the look of it, but it's entirely a personal preference thing.
Okay. And what is let's just go down the line here.
This is also a Superliner.
A Superliner, gotcha.
And then you have this Brockway here, which Brockway was a company based out of Cortland, New York, that built trucks from probably the 40s or 50s, Teddy?
Yeah.
Until about 1976 or 77 when they were bought by Mack and Mack closed them.
Oh, so Mack bought Brockway.
Mack had bought Brockway, and Brockway's thing was the Husky. Mack has the Bulldog, Brockway has the Husky. You can see the Husky on top of the hood there. And then behind you, Parker, here, this is another Mack Superliner.
Okay.
This is a Magnum, which was a special option package for 1985 when they actually released to the Superliner 2. So you can see here that this truck has the square headlights in it. And for the beginning of 1985, to commemorate the release of the Superliner 2, they made the Magnum edition. It's a red interior with this really cool 80s style striping. And this truck is another E9, so it's a 500 horsepower V8 Mack. These are cool. I love these trucks. These are really neat.
Yeah, and this one, I mean, it is.
And again, this is
nice.
another flawless restoration by Dan Thomas.
And you were telling me that the Magnum is like one of the cooler trucks to have.
Oh yeah. These are neat trucks. There's a lot of the brands back in the 70s and the 80s did a lot of really special commemorative editions. So if we see a couple others, I'll make sure we point them out while we're walking around. Then you also have these W71 Macks, which this is another really oddball Mack that they made. These are cool because they actually have, they call them iron lung Cumminses in them. If you look right here, you can see the blower for the Cummins because it was before they were supercharging engines. This truck is a 1953, so it was before Cummins would put turbochargers on engines. So they bolted a supercharger to the side of it.
And now are all these the same?
Yes, these are all. I believe these are all W71s. The other one, my dad and I were looking at before, was this one because it's got this really wild brake setup on it. You can also see from the back here, this truck has 2 transmissions. You'll see a lot of these vintage trucks run 2 transmissions that run either a 5 and a 4 speed or a 4 and a 4 speed. And then we were fascinated before, excuse me, by the brake setup because the service brakes are down there, but the parking brakes are up here, and they run this really long rod for the brakes. It's just a really oddball setup that you would never see today. But back in the 50s and 60s, stuff like this was common because they were just figuring all this stuff out.
What does a truck like this run for? Do you have any idea?
Oh, I couldn't even begin to guess because the restorations on these trucks can get so expensive. A lot of times you can end up putting a lot more money into a truck than even close to what the truck is worth. But it's a labor of love thing. I mean,
Okay.
it's like anything.
Now, Teddy, your dad actually has 6 trucks here. Is that right?
Oh yeah, 6 trucks.
And what do you guys do? And you guys go to all these type of events? Is that?
Yeah, so me and my dad are in the trucking business. He does car hauling, but for our side hobby, we restore, old trucks and things like that. Some cars here and there, but mostly antique trucks, and we bring in the shows. enjoy that in some ways. So.
Yeah, and I thank you for coming out for us because, me personally, I don't know a whole lot about these trucks, and the first 10 minutes here, both of you guys have already taught me a lot. So
Yeah.
why don't we go find some other trucks to take a look at, and we'll try and see if we can find the most interesting one. What's this truck, Teddy?
So here's a 1969 Mack R6 111T, owned by a very nice gentleman named Bob Stagpole. He's in Cushing, Maine, right outside of Owl's Head. And he restored this truck a bunch of years ago, and this truck has a very unique story to it. Because all the places it's been, Bob here takes his truck and drives it all over the place. It has Mack engine. I think it has a Cummins or either a Mack engine. I'm really not sure. But this truck has been all over the country because he geared it for highway speeds. This truck will easily go 80 miles an hour, no problem. And he has stuff in the back for it that he puts clothes in. There's air ride seats in it. So this truck has been all around the country, even though it's a single axle Mack dump truck.
It's a lot of miles, huh?
A lot of miles. He's put hundreds of thousands on this truck.
And you were telling me that he drove it from Maine all the way to
Yes.
Reno last year for the show?
So last year he went from Cushing, Maine to Reno, Nevada for the national show, and then from there he went back to Makunji. And he did it in about 3 weeks.
Oh, you can open the door? Oh, cool.
Yeah, you can open the door.
Thank you. Pretty bare bones in there, huh?
Oh yeah.
He even takes his tools with him.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Man, this white Freightliner is cool. I love this paint, these paint stripes on this thing. I think this thing's like a 71 or a 72 with a Detroit in it, with a V8 Detroit. I love these style stripes and stuff on this thing.
It's a 72, it
It's
says.
a neat truck. I love these white Freightliners.
And Marty, what is a white Freightliner?
So White and Freightliner was combined as companies. They ended up just becoming Freightliner. But
And White
this
was a truck company by
White was
itself?
another truck company that got bought, I believe, by Freightliner.
Okay.
And man, this thing is neat. It's a cool truck. I'm just a fan of the Freightliner stuff. I mean, obviously now they don't build quality at all, but this was back when Freightliner was actually a quality name in truck. There were so many cool factory paint schemes on a lot of these trucks. When we're walking around, you'll see like a lot of these stripes were factory stripes. You could order the paint jobs like that back in the 70s
Now,
and the 80s.
the COE, like this one right here.
Cab over engine.
The cab over engine. Is that why don't they use that anymore?
That was
or-
so a lot of that was for length laws. A lot of different states had length laws regarding the total length of the truck and the trailer that in this day and age have sort of gone by the wayside.
Okay.
As governments have allowed longer and longer trucks, the need for a cab over engine sort of went away. There's just no need for it anymore. So you see a lot less of them. You still see them in certain applications, especially in cities, but for the most part, and a normal conventional style truck rides much better. These trucks ride terribly, and also you're the first to the scene of the accident in a cab over engine truck. So we were just walking by, and the paint scheme on this Kenworth W900A caught my eye, and I noticed it's very popular in the trucking community. I think this truck's a 1980, and it was swapped to Peterbilt Airleaf, which is a simple 4-airbag system for the rear suspension.
And so you could mix and match?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of guys do it because the newer suspensions ride so much better. Like this truck next to us, this blue truck, this blue Kenworth here. This truck has Kenworth 8-bag, which means that there's an airbag on the front and the back of both axles. So there's actually 8 airbags total in the back of this thing, versus the 4 on the Peterbilt Airleaf. The Peterbilt Airleaf is just a much simpler suspension system, and there's a lot less to go wrong in it. So you'll see a lot of guys swap this Peterbilt style Airleaf suspension into their trucks versus a lot of the older style suspension, because there was a lot of strange suspension systems they used in trucks back in the 60s and the 70s. There's all kinds of weird manufacturers and weird styles. So like I said, you'll see a lot of people when they modify these trucks, they switch to just a much simpler suspension system.
Now, is this truck a desirable truck?
W900, yeah, W900's a cool truck.
W900?
W900s.
What makes this a W900, or is it just, I know that's just the number, but...
I mean, W900 was made, I think, in the late 60s, early 70s. Really meant to be a over-the-road truck, larger cab. They usually came with sleepers. This is a short hood version, so this would have most likely had something like a 400 big cam Cummins, maybe like a B model Cat, something like that. But you do see a lot of these trucks for over the road use though. This truck I just catch my eye too. This is a beautiful Sterling that was restored by Bob Green from Massachusetts. I don't know what year it is. It is a 1950. So Sterling manufactured trucks in America from the early 1900s all the way up to about the 50s, 60s, and they were one of the last manufacturers to actually make a truck with chain drive on it, because Mack had chain drive up until the 40s. They got away with it and went to the driveline. But Sterling found out that their chain drive was actually a very, very good system.
Some people just don't want to update with the times.
Yeah.
See, that one's at least got a guard on it.
I mean, this truck didn't have windows on the driver's side. The door is very low, so better visibility actually. Rarity-wise, they're pretty damn rare because you really don't see them that often. Especially the chain drive this late, they really didn't have. They did not make many of them.
There weren't many people ordering chain drives in the 40s.
So
and
the 1950s, early 50s Sterlings were quite rare because they were not a very desirable truck for the day because the drive lines were coming out, and they were making a lot better trucks that were a lot more suitable for the roads.
What are some of the other trucks in this row?
This is a 1934 Mack. You can see the old style Mack logo here.
That's an AK, and that's actually, even though it's a 1934, it actually has a driveline. Does not have a chain, not chain driven.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which for the time was actually very uncommon because
it's funny that you could have a truck from 1950 with a chain drive and a truck from 1934 that uses a conventional style differential.
Yeah. This was restored by Matt Fall in Bethlehem, Connecticut. He does a lot of Macks for guys all over the East Coast.
Now, I see that it has a winch back here.
Yes.
Would that have been factory, or was this added, you think, or?
I don't know for trucks these old if they would have them from factory, but a lot of guys use them because they would use them for rigging pulling trailers on, things like that. So,
I actually think this is a Mack winch.
Yes, actually, it is a Mack winch. So
it's actually a Mack.
In that case,
it is actually a Mack built winch because you can see the little old style Mack logo.
In that case, I think it might have came with the truck originally. So, just very rare. You don't see that much often. 2 levers there to operate the machinery.
This one is done very well.
Oh no, these are beautiful trucks.
Yeah, I mean, the paint on this one's extremely nice.
Gorgeous truck. The Green company does a great job in their antiques.
So this here is a Federal. To be honest with you, I don't know much about Federal. I'm assuming they were another small manufacturer that probably got bought by somebody else about 5 or 6 times over.
Well, the military on the outside is kind of like, it goes with the Federal theme, huh?
But what I really wanted to show you was these Garwood winches here. So you would see a lot of Garwood winches coming out of World War II. They all got sold surplus. So any old tow trucks that you see from back 40s and the 50s, they used a lot of Garwood winches because they could get them surplus for cheap from the military after World War II.
You were saying that this is like on an aircraft carrier or something, right?
Yeah,
this style.
These winches would have been used on aircraft carriers and just would have been used all over the military to do what winches do. But they sold so many of them dirt cheap after World War II because they just produced so many of them for the war. This one's pretty special because it's got a gold bulldog on it. A gold bulldog was only put on by Mack if it was built with a Mack engine, a Mack transmission, and Mack rears, meaning the truck is all Mack. Because there were so many options with Mack. You could order a Detroit, a Cat, a Cummins, or a Mack engine. But if you ordered a truck that specifically had all Mack components, you would get a gold bulldog on the hood to signify it. So when you're walking by any truck with a gold bulldog, it means it was all Mack, and it was something that Mack was very proud of if you happen to buy.
Does that mean they're worth more?
I wouldn't particularly say they're worth more, just that it's cool to see. So you can see there's one here, then it skips one, and then there's another gold bulldog. And they would do that on our models and on Superliners. These trucks are all Superliners here.
This caught my eye real quickly. So this is a Mercury Sleeper actually. They built these in the 60s and 70s, and these were aftermarket for all these trucks. So a Mercury Sleeper you would never get stock with the truck. So you would probably order, a Peterbilt like this at $359 and put this on, and very unique because it's all stainless and very polished.
Oh, okay. So this is the truck, and then this is a Mercury Sleeper. This piece back here
has a completely different component. So obviously, a lot of trucks back then, for over the road, used to have, stock. They would have, sleepers, but Mercury was just one of those things that not many people got, but it was very interesting because it was just such a unique look to it.
Now, are these all like rock dents and?
Most likely.
Oh, that is
Because the guy doesn't have any feathers, most likely.
But yeah, this is
Yeah, but a very unique look though. It has a like retro look to it, per se.
it's kind of like an Airstream almost.
Yeah, it had that look to it when they got him back in the day. Yeah, I just saw his truck, really caught my eye. So this is a 1961 Mack B67 with a thermodyne diesel. So they made these exclusively B67s for tanker hauling. So if you see on the back here, which is actually very interesting, it caught my eye too. On the back of the cab, it's actually concave here. So they actually made these specifically for tankers because they would have the tankers be literally a foot off the cab, so they have extra room there and clearance to turn. So it was a very interesting truck for the time. Really was.
I like big horsepower stuff, and this truck is a 3408. So this is a Cat engine, 34 truck engine. They were rated, I believe, at 475 or 500 horsepower. They use these engines from the late 70s to about the mid 80s, and it's just cool to see. Again, it's something else you don't see too often.
This one just is a big truck, Marty.
Yeah, this truck's big.
I mean, compared to the ones around it.
Big truck and big horsepower.
That's your original picture.
Of this black one behind us? That's pretty cool. Are you the owner?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm Parker, by the way. It's
Hi,
nice to meet you.
you.
Yep.
This truck was built heavy from the factory because of the suspension. So this just uses big rubber block suspension. It doesn't use airbags. It doesn't use torsion bars. The whole suspension is these walking arms and these big rubber blocks. This truck was built to pull heavy from the factory because this thing rides like a brick shit house. You could also see actually here too. This truck is double framed from the factory.
Yes, it is.
So you can actually see that there's two layers of frame here. That was very common for a lot of big trucks. They still actually do that today. They'll double or triple frame a truck depending on how long it is and how heavy you're speccing it. The problem is with double frame trucks, and you can see on this truck how it did it.
The rust.
They rust in between, and it rust jacks the frame. It's very common on things with double or triple frame.
Does that ruin the truck then?
Eventually you'll end up putting rails in it. There's really no, but I mean it takes decades and years for it to actually get damaged. But again, it's something that's cool to see. And like I said, this truck caught my eye mainly because of the engine. I'm a big Cat guy, so seeing 3408s in things is always fun. Continuing to look at big horsepower stuff because that's what I like. This truck here is a 75 Kenworth W900 that has a V12 Detroit in it. You can see the 12V71. This is probably my favorite truck here because this truck doesn't look like it's ever been restored, and this is what I like. See the old Kenworth beam style suspension in the back where it's just leaves. There's no airbags. There's no rubber blocks. It's just these sets of leaf springs back here, and
What, they pulled this one out of a barn?
looks like it. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff I like the most. Is the stuff that's unrestored and not pretty, but you know somebody was a badass in 1975 when they ordered this truck.
You know how much this would have costed back then, Marty?
Probably somewhere between 70 and 80 grand.
Okay.
Between 60 and 80 grand, if I had to hazard a guess.
And that was not cheap in 1970. huh?
No, because I know in the late 60s the stuff was between 40 and 50. So by the mid 70s the prices had gone up. We were talking about cool paint schemes, and here's one you don't normally think of. This is an International TransStar. I think this is a 1980, and what a cool paint scheme on this thing. This truck was optioned really cool too, because it's actually Cat powered. A lot of these Internationals were built with Cumminses because they were the cheaper engine option. So to see something with a Cat in it, and I think this is a 3406 B model Cat with an aftercooler on it. So it was probably rated for 425 horsepower from the factory. It's neat to see high horsepower stuff, and this is a neat truck because it's from an oddball manufacturer, and I love the paint scheme on this stuff. This was when International really had some cool paint schemes, and you'll see this a lot. International, Freightliner, even Western Star, they all had really cool paint schemes from the factory on their trucks.
Now, Marty, let me ask you here. I'm looking at this truck, and I know how people are about rust in the car world. What is rust like this? Does that matter in the truck world, or?
I mean, does it hurt value? Yes. Anybody who's going to probably do a complete restoration on this truck is going to replace this suspension anyway.
Oh, they're going to replace
What a lot of people do, and elsewhere in the video I talked about it, is they will update the suspension to a more modern air ride suspension because stuff like this, it rides horribly.
Okay.
So it was what was used at the time, and also it was what the truck was spec'd with. But to somebody doing a complete restoration, again, one day on this truck, it's perfectly usable as it is now. It's one of those things where it's the same in the car world with barn finds and stuff. People love seeing the stuff sort of as it was found and as it survived. You know, these things were used to work. They weren't like race cars and stuff where they didn't get a lot of mileage on them. A lot of these trucks got a lot of mileage put on them. You know, stuff with 1 million miles is nowhere near unheard of. It's fairly common for the older truck world. So for stuff to have survived this long, it's just cool to see, rust or not. So right here, this is a Freightliner Powerliner. Now, when you first look at it, it looks just like another normal Freightliner, another normal cab over. However, if you compare the grill opening to the size of a grill opening on a normal truck, you'll notice it's about twice the size. Even on a normal Freightliner, the grill opening starts about here, whereas this one goes all the way across because the radiator is physically bigger. If you wanted big horsepower out of a Freightliner cab over, this is what you would order. This truck actually has a 3408 cat tucked in there, so you can see how physically large the engine is inside, tucked under the cab. These trucks are really cool. These are probably one of my all-time favorite trucks, just because it shows what Freightliner was willing to do to give a customer horsepower that they wanted back in the day. So earlier we were talking about Mack trucks. I was walking around and I noticed this truck is really cool. You'll notice in the window, it says it's an FS 700 Mack. Now when the S means that it's a steel frame truck. Now what that also means is that this was built out of Mack in Hayward, California. This is what's called a Mack Western. You can see here in the door, it says Mack Western at a Hayward, California, sorry. So this is an FS 797 LST. L stands for lightweight cab, S stands for six wheel, and T stands for tandem. Mack had two plants at the time. They had, well, they had a couple plants, but they had one, the big one in Allentown, and they wanted to open up more and produce more trucks, so they built a second plant out in California. The plant in California operated from 1965 until around 1980, and their numbering for trucks was a little different. That's why I was able to first tell that this was a Mack Western truck. You don't see a lot of these on the East Coast. You can see, obviously, this truck's a steel frame truck. I found other trucks here that are aluminum frame, so we'll show one later on. But again, just another really cool truck. See this as I think it's a V8. Yeah, it's a V8 truck. Also, this is actually a Golden Bulldog too. So not only is this a Western Mack, this truck is all Mack. So it's a Mack engine and Mack transmission. I actually looked underneath. It's got what's called the Mack triple shaft trans. So there's three main shafts on the trans. There's two on the top and one on the bottom. It splits the torque three ways, so you end up with a much stronger trans. It is a gigantic pain in the ass to remove because now you have a big V underneath, but it is an incredibly strong, durable transmission. This has Mack rears in it. These are Mack top loader rears, as opposed to like an Eaton or a more standard rear axle. So again, that Golden Bulldog means it was all Mack, and it's just really neat that this is a Mack Western built in Hayward, California.
Is that like bragging rights to have a Gold Bulldog on your truck, or no?
It could be. I mean, in the Mack world, yeah, it's just.
I feel like to me it would be.
It's just something cool to have. It's neat that Mack cared that much about the customer and about what they were purchasing, that they would go out of their way if you were ordering something like that. So someone here made a copy of the Smokey and the Bandit truck. You can see this is a Kenworth W900A with a 3408 in it, so big horsepower truck to begin with. And then they also copied the trailer, which I'm a big Smokey and the Bandit fan, so this is cool to see. It's a neat truck. This is really cool. You can see the custom paint on the trailer. I wouldn't even want to know what this took to replicate.
Yeah, that is nice.
Because man, there's a lot of work there.
That just puts a smile on your face. Imagine seeing that going
Yeah.
on the highway.
Yeah.
Man, that is really, really cool. All right, guys, so we made it around the entire loop here at the York State Fairground. And what I want to do is go ahead and thank Marty.
Oh, of course, anytime. Had a blast here today showing you some trucks.
Yep.
I hope you guys watch this video, learned something today. Had a lot of fun doing it. Support your local car and truck shows. Go look at some cool stuff.
Oh, yeah.